Kia ora koutou. I've had a really interesting journey in governance, and that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. My own board experience, I very much focus on privately owned businesses, so that's my passion. Those meaning those businesses that are not public, that are commercial entities that range in size from maybe $2 or $3 million turnover a year to $20 or $30 million turnover. That's where I gravitate towards. I don't come, even though I come from a legal background, I don't really come to the board. I come to the board with maybe a strategic mind. I like thinking into the future. I like looking at bigger picture opportunities. I like looking to see where the industry is going that I'm working in, where other industries are going, and how I can take learnings from that and apply them to learnings here. So I come at a very strategic mindset. And because of a people-based background, I look at things rather than a numbers-based, that are through a people lens. So I'm always looking at succession. What would happen if our CEO left tomorrow, or got unwell, or disappeared? Where in the management team is that replacement going to come from? How are we, as an organisation, creating a culture that attracts the best people to work for us? That's the sort of things that I come from. So very much a strategy and a people side. Accountants will come at things from a finance side. Lawyers will come at things from maybe a risk-based, what could go wrong. Entrepreneurs will come from where are the opportunities and let's seize them at no cost. A board has got to be balanced, and balance is making sure that people think differently, come from different backgrounds, approach problems from different angles, and if we have robust discussions and people coming at the problem from different ways, it should and has been proven empirically to make stronger decisions. So that's the basis for diverse boards now. I think diverse boards are two things. So diversity of boards, we get people thinking differently, we'll get better conversations, better discussions, and better decisions. I also have a personal feeling that I think that boards should be diverse because I think there's a role to representing to customers and to staff and to other stakeholders, that actually anyone has the ability to get to the board table, and it's not just for a select few. So I have young daughters, and I want them to look at boards and going, Dad, why are boards just mostly got guys on them and older guys? Does that mean I can't? And I'm trying to challenge it so they don't ever have that question, because they've seen role models and they've seen other people on those boards that they can aspire to be there as well. So that's some of my philosophies there. It's not a right to be on a board, so I think you have to be very, very clear as to what you're going to contribute to the board. What's my niche? What's my area of deep knowledge? What's my expertise? Where is my evidence that I'm going to be able to contribute? Because everyone will say, yes, we want diversity, but it's based on merit. And there is some argument in that being on a board isn't a right. You have to be very clear in your background, what your strengths are, what you're going to be able to bring to the table. Some of that will be softer skills, how you approach problems, how you think differently, and that's fine. But it also has to be harder, tangible skills. What's your executive background? What are the industries that you know particularly well? What are some of the functional skills? Maybe you're strong in marketing, or in law, or in engineering, or in social services, or there'll be something that you've got a strong functional background. And that's a challenge when you're earlier on in your governance career, is that you might have 5 or 7 or 8 years or even 2 years of executive experience. So that's a challenge. You don't have that breadth and that depth because you've only just studied. And that's where you need to turn that into your advantage and go, well, I do look at things differently, and I am connected to a different part of that community, and that community is really important to this organisation because we serve them, or we sell to them, or we're meant to be representing them. And if I look around the table, who's got that voice of that person? Who's of those people? Who can represent their views? Who can lead the conversation about what they are thinking and what's important to them? So that's, again, the other thing I often share is that the ideal board position is the intersect of what you're passionate about and what you're capable of. So if you get passion there and capability there, and where they overlap is that real sweet spot. So if you know what excites you and what deeply moves you and where you have a strong purpose around, that's a really good start. Because in the absence of deep experience in that area, it's that enthusiasm and that energy and that positivity that will shine through. Someone won't put you on a board because if they're looking for 20 years of board experience, you're not that person. But if they look around the table going, you know what, we've got enough people around here that know about governance, what we need is different views and energy and some enthusiasm. So that's why that passion is important. On the capability side, then you need to reflect. What industries am I aware of? Where do I have that deep knowledge? What parts of the community can I represent? And because most of you have Māori backgrounds, and that's a very obvious one. And for some organisations that are, for whatever reason, want to have that, need to have someone leading that conversation around the board table. We're hoping that people are progressive enough to do that, and then giving you an opportunity for a lack of governance experience, bringing in that voice of Māori or young Māori or certain geography or certain parts of the community. It's going to sound a little bit trite, but I think technology and what is happening with the way younger people are communicating, which then does flow on to the rest of the community. So being able to see things that are happening earlier on with the early adopters, which tends to be younger people, that then becomes mainstream. So, you know, that being the case, looking at an organisation that's maybe been a little bit conservative in its approach, because if you've got, as you get older, as I'm finding in life, that you become more conservative because you become more risk averse because you've got something to actually lose. When you've got nothing to lose, it's pretty easy to be a risk taker, because what's the downside? The more that you older you get and the more experience you get, you know, reputation-wise and lots of other things, the more conservative you can be. So I think it just, if there's a board that tends to err on the side of caution, then if there's a voice or two around the table saying, actually, I'm going to advocate and try and influence to give this a go, or to at least take some form of risk, then I think that's what you can do from a younger viewpoint. If the organisation sells to younger people or serves through a not-for-profit younger people, and that board doesn't have, as I said before, that voice of younger people, then that's just not on. It's just not prudent. Need to be able to have someone who can represent that around the table. So Shady gives you some ideas. It does come down to specific organisations with specific needs, but they are some general observations.
What are some ways that our participants might influence or open up a conversation with existing boards who maybe don't really want to go down that pathway?
I think if a board doesn't want to go down that pathway, I wouldn't spend my time trying to change that. When I look at it from a very broad New Zealand perspective, I know there is a definite movement towards being more open to bringing different thinking and different skills onto the board, even from 3 years ago and then 6 years ago and then 10 years ago. So I know that at a macro, bigger level, it is heading in the right direction. When it comes down to individual organisations, I think there has to be someone's going to get on that bus a little bit earlier and somebody isn't. And if they're not going to, I wouldn't spend the time and waste the energy in trying to convert that. They will come on in their own due time. But what you can do is, there's often been argument, we'd love to, but we don't know where to find them. We don't know where to start. So by creating a profile and by having conversations and saying, actually, it might seem different, but in my early part of my career, I feel like I can contribute to a board. This is my background. This is some of the professional development I've done around that. I'm taking it seriously, and so it gives someone an option to go, okay, I do know where to find them, or that really has opened my mind up, or goodness, that individual was really articulate, or they had great ideas or great insights. And I think just by sharing with people that this is part of your career plans at the moment just opens people's eyes up. So what we're doing now is just part of that. For me, giving you the confidence to have conversations with other colleagues or people in your broader community, I think that is how we create the movement. So no one's going to put someone on a board just because they want to be on a board or out of right. There's got to be the ability to be able to contribute. So it takes a lot of reflection and a lot of introspection to go, actually, in an organisation, if I'm going to be sitting at a table helping to monitor and mentor the CEO, which is a key role of the board, and to hire the CEO, and to set the strategy, and to manage risk, and to be responsible for a wide group of stakeholders, some of which are shareholders, some of which may be iwi, some of which may be employees, some of which may be creditors that we owe money to. How am I going to do that? What is it in my background that allows me to do that? Now, if you're struggling to articulate that yourself, one, maybe the time's not right, and so you need to park that and continue working on your executive career and other things to make that happen. Or two, if you can't articulate it, then you can't really expect someone else to be able to, take the time to deconstruct that and work that out. So it does come, I keep coming back down to, there are opportunities, but you have to reflect in your background where it is that you're going to lead the conversation around a board table, and where, rather than keeping a seat warm, where you're really going to contribute. Or any exposure you can get to a board by sitting in on a board meeting, or having coffee with an experienced director, and just hearing about what are the challenges that you're facing at the moment. Tell me about your board. What are some of the challenges on the board? What's the dynamic? If they're not the chair, tell me about the chair. How do they chair? What's great about how they lead, and what's not so good? If you're in a organisation and with your day job, can I get the opportunity to present to the board? Can I put a paper together for the board? Can I get some mentoring around what should be in this paper? Can I get some feedback from that? So any exposure you can get to the workings of a board, so that if anyone takes you on, it's sort of de-risked, because they go, well, you've sat in a board meeting, this isn't completely new to you. You do know what you're getting in for. And you did have coffees with a couple of people, and I understand, the learnings that you got from that. So I think just getting yourself exposure, community groups, being on a decision-making part of a community group. It's all about, how do I influence? How do I be part of the decision-making process? How can I steer things into the way that I think they should be doing? It's all fundamentally basis of parts of governance. And the more experience you get with that, then you move from sort of community groups into maybe some not-for-profit roles, and then not-for-profit roles might lead on to commercial roles, or you might not, the path might take. So it's about being in the decision-making part of an organisation, thinking longer term rather than day to day, looking at risk and managing that, communicating with stakeholders, and stakeholders, can be wide and varied, but understanding that you're there as a director, you're there to serve in the best interests of the organisation, or of the members, or of the stakeholders. And there's responsibilities that come with that, and the more you get exposed to that, what you learn in one environment, you'll take across to another environment. When you hear about a mistake being made over here that someone shares, you'll be wary of that. You understand that health and safety is now a big part of all boards, so with exposure you can get to that, and be aware that conversations that we're having about how the business or the organisation is progressing, you might have your health and safety lens on, going, I'm concerned here, we will be exposed. What I've learned from another organisation where that fell down, let's not make the same mistake here.
So you've had a lot of experience in placing directors onto boards, right?
Yep.
What are some of the key things that you look for, and is there a commonality in those things, or is it very specific to the kind of organisation you're recruiting?
Yeah, I try and make it very specific to the organisation, because if you go in with a blanket, this is what a good director looks like, then there's only a certain number of people who are going to get those board roles. And I think that's the problem at the moment, is that organisations are using the cookie cutter approach. Must have been a chair for 20 years with industry experience and next CEO. Well, that automatically takes a possible pool of candidates down to about that much. Then they've got to live in Auckland, or they've shrunk it down even more, So when I have put 70 directors into place or 70 board members, assistant directors or advisory board members in place. I like to start with a blank piece of paper, because then it gives the best chance of not repeating exactly what we did for the previous role and the previous role. When you then peel that away, ability to communicate. I mean, this is not going to sound like it's revolutionary, but if you're around a board table and you're timid as a mouse, it's probably not going to be well received. If you're articulate, then it's like, great, this person is going to have the confidence to put their opinion forward. Honesty and integrity, two characteristics that get bandied around a lot, but when you're responsible and have a fiduciary responsibility, meaning you're in a position of trust for other individuals and acting in trust, you have to be able to show a track record of integrity and honesty. There's no right or no wrong, but I think you need to be aware, again, that self-reflection of yourself, self-reflection, and go, what are my traits? What are my values? I've got 4 strong family values that I live by. I want to make sure that, 1, I can communicate those, and 2, that the organisation that I'm going to serve on has similar values, or at least values that aren't in conflict with that, because otherwise it would end. It's not going to end well. There are principles that say that you are responsible for the outcomes for that organisation. You are to think longer term rather than shorter term. You are to make sure that that the separation between governance, as in who's on the board and who's in management, is not blurred. Classic line is, for board members, it's noses in but fingers out. So noses in, you have to ask questions, you have to be engaged, you have to be interested, but you don't start trying to do the doing. And for a lot of organisations, that's the challenge you get. For a lot of CEOs or executives, it's hard because they leave an environment where they are responsible for doing the doing. They are the number one person that takes the rap for doing the doing. Then the next day they jump into a board and they're paid to think, and they are, well, not paid, sometimes they're paid, but they're there to think and to monitor and to influence and to guide and suggest, yet they want to get back in and doing the doing again. Okay. So, I think yes, so there is common themes. It's that longer term thinking, but then some organisations that are commercial, there is a commercial bent. So the flavour is towards driving the business to achieve outcomes for the shareholders, and often that is making money. And there's other organisations that the purpose and the cause and the influence to the community is obviously a lot stronger. So that's when it sort of deviates as to the purpose of the organisation. But a lot of experienced commercial directors also serve on not-for-profits and vice versa. So there's quite a cross, there is that commonality of wisdom and judgment and acting in trust for others.
Do you have like a not best practice, but a list of key questions that are really useful for board members to be asking, or resources that would be very easy for a young person to pick up and take into a boardroom from which they could add value to that board? Yeah,
that cookie cutter approach doesn't, always asking a why question is helpful. Why are we doing that? Or the W questions. Why are we doing that? What are we doing there? Why are we doing that? And feeling comfortable with that. So it's preparing for the meetings, by reading the papers. But not just reading the papers, being interested in what else is happening around there. Looking in the papers for what's not being said, not just what's being told to you. And if you don't understand it, asking for clarification, which is really hard when you're on an experienced board. And everyone says, I ask the dumb questions. Well, people like to think they ask the dumb questions, but sometimes people don't really want to ask the dumb questions because you don't want to look stupid. So, you have to be confident in your own ability that you're going, actually, if I'm confused about this, I'm sure other people are confused about this. You don't want to ask the question that people are saying, well, if you're on this board, you should, that's pretty fundamental knowledge. So there is a judgment call there. But you need, you have a position of responsibility. If something goes wrong, it's the directors and a board that go to jail. It's not the shareholders, and as long as they're not being dishonest or negligent, it's not the CEO or the management team that go to jail. It is the directors. So you have a right and an obligation to answer those questions until you are satisfied with the answer, because you're the one with the most at risk to lose. I've been fortunate in the last 4 years I've never had that, but I think that's probably why you engage someone professional to help with that. You know, I have an obligation to the organisation to make sure that we find someone who is very unlikely, or make it positive, who's very likely to be able to fit and contribute and be who they say they are. I wouldn't probably do a board role and put it out there if I didn't think the organisation was genuine in its need for governance and wanted to actually make something happen. So unfortunately, that's not the case. It does happen, and I think there is a values misalignment. Typically, it comes down to. It doesn't often come down to confidence, as in they were hopeless. It's more the direction that the organisation was heading in, or the way they conducted themselves was different from the values that that's important to me.
Have you tested that though in advance?
Yeah. So you ask a lot of questions. You want to meet with the CEO, and you want to meet with the chair, and you want to ask people that know the organisation, and you want to read through documents like past board papers, because if they're true and accurate, they'll show where there's issues and challenges in business. You want to look through the financials to make sure it's solvent, and there's challenges, there's challenges there to be aware of. So it's asking a lot of questions, asking questions from people who know the organisation, who know its reputation, and then asking to see financial statements, past board minutes, asking if there's any litigation pending. Is there anything that's happening in the business at the moment that could be a reputational risk for me if it was uncovered? Reputational risk is a big thing. You've only your own reputation, and it can be tarnished by you being a director of an organisation. Something happens there by association. You then carry some of that burden.
But the question comes up: how do we make our applications stand out when there's 7,000 other profiles on there?
Yeah, well, there's not 7,000 other profiles. That's a good thing. There's only about 250 profiles, because only a small percentage. Everyone gets those emails and they're able to apply for the board roles, but only 250 have got the smarts to actually put up there. So you're already in a select group anyway. I think most of it's factual. It's what my experience is. What am I interested in? The one area is that paragraph at the top where you sort of share your background and what I call the governance statement. Why do I want to be a director? And where will I add the most value as a board member? And I read through a lot of those, and I thought they made perfect sense. There is no magic formula. It's about being authentic and about answering that question. And a lot of most of the profiles I read through did that very well. Except for you. So it's yes. Well, why am I interested in being a director? And that's important for aspiring directors. And where do I believe I can contribute the most? So if you come, there's a recurring theme around here, is if you're not sure where you contribute and you want to be a director or a board member just because that sounds interesting, or I feel that that's what I should do, I don't think that's strong enough. It's been able to be very clear as to where you'll be able to contribute. So well done for getting your profiles up there. I think they read well. There is no secret sauce there. Be authentic. And if people search through and that's of interest to them, they will contact. And understanding that you won't be inundated, and over time it takes time, but it's just another way. If you apply for board roles, if you use your network to let people know that you're interested in board roles and you've got your profile up there, it's just another way. It's just another way for elevating. And as a body, it means that someone's searching through there and they might go, goodness, there seems to be a lot of very capable young Māori directors or potential aspiring directors there. And something that's like, oh, wow, maybe we should consider that. When you're on a point, you'll get the fortnightly email, so you'll start seeing what roles are coming through, you'll see where they're based, what skills are required, and then you either say, goodness, I've got a while to go, or actually there's a couple here that are really interested in me because they're not for profit, and I'm passionate about that cause. I'm living in the right area, and the functional skill that they want is marketing, and I happen to have a marketing bent to my university studies or whatever. So that's helpful. The other thing is just in your community, just letting people know that I am just want to share with you, part of my development is I want to contribute at board level. And the more people you share that with, the more someone's going to go, someone was talking to me about that the other day. As soon as the role is advertised, it can be quite competitive. It can be a bit disheartening because only one person can get that role, even though 10 or 20 or 5 or so apply for it. So when you are going out and being proactive and speaking to people in your network, you're getting the ability to hear about board roles before it gets broadcast out to everyone else, which I'm trying to do because I'm all about transparency. But when you're an individual, I'm saying you don't want it to go out there. You just want to catch it before it goes out. So again, it's just about communicating out, and it might sound a little bit trite or a little bit cliche, but that's just the way that you have to promote that's important to you. Yeah, so there should be an induction plan. Yeah, and that would mean if it's got a physical presence, that you are given a tour around and you get to meet staff and physically see what is happening around in the organisation itself. So you need to get a sense. And if it's multi-site, you should go to more. If it's 100 sites, obviously you won't go to all of them. But if it's multi-site, not just going to head office, getting out, experiencing it. I had placed an advisory board member for Rubbish Direct. They go around and do all the recycling, and his first day on the job, he went out on the rubbish truck, and that was the best thing. He got to see it, boots and all. This is what we do, and it was a great learning. You'd want to sit back down with the CEO again, and probably the CFO, so the financial person, and get them to talk through the accounts, so that the next time it's at a board meeting, you've got an understanding and a background there. I think those are the two things. And then you can get that induction. You've already had the board papers, so you've read through that. You'd want to start then reading around the industry. Hopefully it's an industry or a sector that you've got some interest in, because that's probably why you've got it. Just continuing to upskill yourself there, and then it's starting to attend the board meetings and seeing what issues are coming up, what's coming up on the horizon, upskilling there. So yeah, there's not you can do preparation, and induction is important, but then it's just time, and as the business goes through its business cycles, through its budgeting phases, through its reporting, there's nothing that sort of compares with actually just time in the seat. I haven't really. That's not my. It's not my game.
One thing that was particularly related to us to go, where's the for a point?
I know that's actually got me thinking. Yeah, it is desktop based. It's not like a Tinder sort of swipe either side. It is, yeah. So I'm really conscious about it being if you're serious about a board, I know that may be a generational thing, but I feel that if you're interested, you'll go to the book job site and you'll look through it. It's less than sort of going home on the bus. Let me see if there's board. That's interesting. Apply and see what happens. It's got to be sort of a little bit more substantive. Exactly. If it's too easy, it's sort of like, hang on. I think to take this seriously, sometimes there has to be a bit of pause, reflect, have a look on the company's website, do a little bit of digging around. Am I the right person? Do I think I am? Yes. Let me craft a cover letter. Let me get my CV. It's like any other role. So just the ability to go, But I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about how that can develop things. There's always more expensive than you think. So the one thing that I've cut myself a little bit short there, I'm a director of Board Pro, so it's a startup which has got a little bit of Icehouse connection, that I think there's a better way of bringing technology into the boardroom. Often minutes are still done on paper, emailed out. Someone goes, where's the shareholder agreement? Where's the company constitution? It's somewhere around. There's, people might use Dropbox or might use Box and Google Docs, and it's all over the show. So we have created something called Board Pro, which we've raised the capital for, and it's launched. It's in its beta version at the moment. So I am looking at the intersection of how can we make boards and not-for-profit boards run more effectively and more efficiently, better. As for directors, it's make me look good, save my butt. It's so it's like a portal where board minutes, agendas are created on it, and board minutes are created on it and distributed internally. There's a document repository with all the constitution and shareholder agreements and past minutes all set in there. There's going to be a dashboard that's saying, are we meeting our health and safety obligations? And how's that working for us? When actions points are created in a meeting, they're automatically emailed out to people and reminders put on. You can sort of, on your email, you can say, yes, achieved, and then the date fires back. So it's automating that whole process.
And we've taken a particular interest in Board Pro.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, and so we've had several meetings with the CEO.
Oh, with Brett? Oh, you know all about it?
And, we do a lot of governance reviews and governance training for my organisations. And actually, if they had on hand the document repository and better technology access to a lot of these documents, and it would solve a lot of challenges that come up. And so we're looking at a strategic partnership to sort of roll Board Pro out across some of the Māori organisations.
Well, I'm a director on that organisation and was reasonably instrumental. I was heading in a certain direction and I caused it to pivot, which is, as you know, to sort of say, look, I think this is what's needed in the marketplace. And Brett's got the funding, so I'm pleased that's the case. I think he's told me about that. Yeah, so it has launched, and I'm going to roll it out to the appoint community, but I just thought it needed a couple more features in it for it to be able to be adopted by the mainstream. But it's growing every month. We're releasing new things there, and there's something called Diligence, which is an international package, but it costs like about $12,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year, and we're doing this for $80 a month. So what we're trying to do is just take the best practice and apply it to not-for-profits and small organisations at a price point that people can handle.
So not just skills on a board that is important, but actually some of the tools that sit around it to enable governance to happen well.
Well, I'd like to think that that's, maybe people can bring in their toolkit sort of saying, hey, I've got some other ideas. Not only can I contribute at board level, but have you seen Board Pro?
Any further things that young people should be researching outside governance that you think are going to be particularly important into the future that we're moving in? That we might be cognizant of?
Yeah. No, because I can't predict the future, but all I know is that whatever you do, just become specialist in it and become deep knowledge and build your board persona around that. And you're not doing that just to get board roles, but I think don't try and force it. Just take the natural course of where your interest is, but become really, really good at it. And then use that as this is where I can contribute to a board. If that ends up being something that's not required on a board, I wouldn't get disillusioned. I don't think anyone was born to, with a desire to be on a board. I think it should become a natural extension that I'm good at this, I think it's valuable, it's well received, I'm going to share that in a board environment, as opposed to thinking, I need a board role and I'm going to do everything in my career to get myself onto that board. It's got to be a natural progression. Okay, so yeah, just be worldly, read widely, pick where your expertise is going to be, go deep into it, and build a board persona around that.
Well, thank you, Simon. It's been very interesting to hear that you share the same belief and vision as us that actually young people should have a role on a board, but that to get there, they need to earn it, they need to have some experience and some value to contribute, as well as an understanding of how good governance works in practice. And so it's exciting that we have this cohort of 45 young Māori who are wanting to positively contribute to our communities and to our organisations, learn about best practice governance, experience it, and then actually dip our toes in the water and sign up with a point and actually look to join board roles. So you've provided some really practical advice around how to go about connecting with those board roles, how to prepare for them, how to do due diligence around it, and then what should happen once you step into the seat. So thank you for coming and sharing that information, and you'll no doubt track the journey of them as you see experience levels growing on their point profiles.
look forward to that. Nothing would make me more happy or happier.
Brilliant. All right, ko taitu aki te whakakapi tō tātou nei hui. Pensi, would you mind doing a karakia whakamutunga no tātou katoa?
Kia ora tātou, me kapi te karakia wano, me noi tātou kia tau kia tātou katoa, tātou whātua tātou ariki, ai greiti me tāroa tātou, te whiwhinga teitanga ki te wairua tupu, ake, amane. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.